Hang on just a second. Yes, sorry. Flash forward to the early 60s, and a friend of Garrett's who was starting a new record company asked him if he had any ideas for a record that might make a splash. In an instant, Garrett recalled that liberating night in the Greenwich Village nightclub and urged his friend to make an album of a man singing love songs to another man. Given that homosexuality at the time was illegal, their biggest challenge was finding a singer who was brave enough and willing to actually sing the songs. But Garrett didn't need to look too far. His business partner in the photography studio that he owned in Los Angeles and his good friend Gene Howard not only looked the part, but he had the voice to match. Now, Gene had spent years trying to make it as a band singer and musician in Hollywood clubs, but his solo career never really took off. Gene Howard loved the idea of the album, but thought that it would harm his career, rightfully so. Not only that, but he had a wife and 2 children that he had to consider. Gene Howard asked his wife what she thought about him fronting the album. His wife answered him with 2 questions. 1, would the album be done with dignity? And 2, would the songs be performed with heartfelt sincerity? Gene Howard allegedly responded with, well, it's not going to be a comedy album. And apparently, his wife actually sat in on the recording sessions to make sure that her demands were met, which I think is pretty cool. Now, Gene Howard, when he agreed to record the album, said it was on one condition, which was that his name and the musicians' names were all kept anonymous. In fact, nobody involved with making the album is listed on it anywhere. And it wasn't until 2012 that Gene Howard and the musicians' names were finally revealed. When it was released in 1962, it received no radio airplay. And it was only through word of mouth that it came to the attention of the LA and New York's closeted gay community. But there was a definite strategy behind the sales of the album. For instance, the first record shop to stock the album was positioned directly across the road from a restaurant that was known to only hire gay waiters. From the moment that first waiter walked in, he left with 10 copies for himself and his friends, and a quick call was made by the owner of the record shop to quickly get more stock into the store. But it was not only the gay community that loved the album. Also, the gay community's open-minded and supportive celebrity friends loved the album. It was Liberace's favorite album, no surprises there. Bob Hope had a copy of it. Gore Vidal, Tennessee Williams, Tab Hunter, James Dean had a copy. And of course, Frank Sinatra. Frank, always being the gambling man, used to listen to the album for hours and hours on end trying to guess who the singer was, because he was convinced that he knew him. But unfortunately, Frank never hit the jackpot, and the mystery of who the singer was on the album was never solved in Frank's lifetime. I always dreamed that I would discover the perfect lover someday. I knew I'd recognize him if ever he came around my way. I always used godlike kind of man, with a giant brain and a noble head, like the heroes bold in the books I read. But along came Bill, who's not the type at all. You'd meet him on the street and never notice him. His form and face, his manly grace are not the kind that you would find in a statue. But I can't explain, it's surely not his brain that makes me thrill. 'Cause I love him, because he's wonderful, because he's just my Bill. But I love him because he's, I don't know, because he's just my Whatever changes that were on the brink in the swinging 60s, the love that dared not speak its name seemed destined to remain all but a flickering light. When police came knocking in raids, many men were left, bloodied, bruised and battered. Now in 1967, most gay bars had a dance floor, but it was illegal for men to dance with other men, unless they danced in a circle with a woman in the middle. True story. Now, if a man was caught touching another man, a security guard or a near-standing bar owner would shine a flashlight. Now, if he shone it 3 times, they called the NYPD, who had a deal with the mafia bar owners to arrest a certain quota of homosexuals every week. That's how Stonewall happened 50 years ago. It was a raid on the bar on the day of Judy Garland's funeral, and a squad of NYPD stormed in and roughed up a drag queen who was bigger than most of them. She swung back and a massive brawl erupted. That was the beginning of the gay revolution. But the revolution was akin to a treadmill. Battles were won and lost. And just when it seemed like gay rights were advancing in leaps and bounds and homosexuality was being decriminalized in some countries and states, along came another battleground, the battleground of AIDS. In the 80s and 90s, it claimed thousands of men, knocking them down in their prime, giving rise to new vilification of an already beaten and downtrodden community. Fish gotta swim, birds gotta fly. Dear Doris, I hope this finds you well, not too sad. You were such a peach of a friend to rock, and I can well imagine what you must be feeling. It came as a shock, I knew he had been unwell, but when I saw the words in print splashed across the front page of the Times, Rock Hudson dies at 59 after fighting AIDS, I wanted to scream and curl up and die. It is so unfair. Of all people, as you know only too well, Rock was adorable and fun, our gentle giant. Doris, I realize we didn't always see eye to eye, but I want you to know that when Rock and I split up, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. There's so much I would like to tell you, but now is not the time. For me, the hardest thing of all was to see my name in print in Rock's biography. I could hardly believe my eyes. He called me his true love. I was stunned. And there it was for all the world to see. Rock wrote that his mother and I were the only people he ever loved. I had no idea I meant that much to him. He's my guy. I don't care what he does, for he's my guy. I guess he always was. He's careless about me. I don't think he tries, but once in a while he'll kiss me and smile, and I can't see in his eyes. Oh, he's my guy. Always be, and I will try to keep him loving me, however he wants me. I'm his until I die, for nobody knows better than I that he's my
about him.